My phone buzzed again. The message from my sister glared back at me. "You're not invited to the party. It's an exclusive gathering." Beside it, my stepsister had left that smirking emoji like a neon sign flashing, "You do not belong here." My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I did not rage. I did not beg. I typed slowly, deliberately, "Understood. I will reject the exclusive payments too." The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, the kind of low sound that presses against your chest when betrayal is close. I could hear my own heartbeat, measured, cold. Their laughter would arrive later, but I imagined it already, the high-pitched mockery echoing through our family chat. It did not scare me. Instead, it sharpened something in my chest, a quiet focus. Every slight, every exclusion, every smirk I had endured before crystallized into a calm certainty. This time they would not see me break. I set my phone down and leaned back in my chair, staring at the muted sunlight spilling across the kitchen floor. My sister's words lingered like smoke, twisting around memories I had long buried. She had always treated me as the shadow in the room, the one who existed only when convenient. Birthdays overlooked. Achievements minimized. Every success I carved quietly, applauded only by my own reflection. My stepsister, with her easy laughter and polished words, had learned early that mockery wielded more power than truth. I had watched her charm the adults, slide past accountability, and leave me cleaning up messes I had not created. I knew my family would call me sensitive if I ever spoke too loudly, too dramatic if I pressed back. So I had learned to move in silence, to measure every word, every glance, every step. It was not weakness. It was strategy. Each time they ignored me, I catalogued it. Every slight, every dismissal, every smirk had been stored, not in anger but in quiet awareness. I knew where I fit in their narrative, and more importantly, where they had underestimated me. I could feel the familiar pulse of calm focus settle in my chest. The sense of invisibility that had haunted me all my life transformed, just for a moment, into something like anticipation. I was not the overlooked girl anymore. I was the one who would act while they assumed I would simply fade away. The next day, the group chat lit up again. My sister posted a picture of the party invitations, glossy and perfect, as if they were trophies. "Can't wait for everyone to be here," she typed, and the smirk emoji followed, deliberate, almost theatrical. I read it once, then again. I could almost hear the unspoken message, "You don't matter." Later, I watched them in person. Family dinner, the kind of gathering that should feel safe. My sister's gaze skimmed past me, landing on someone else like I was air. My stepsister leaned in close to my mother, laughing at a joke I hadn't heard, her elbow brushing mine, brushing me out of the circle. My heart remained still. I noticed everything, the way my sister's lips twitched when she thought she was subtle, the faint tension in my mother's jaw, the unsteady posture of my father who always avoided confrontation. They thought these small slights were invisible, harmless. They were wrong. Each exclusion, each pointed glance, each whispered aside built layers of quiet pressure around me. My eyes scanned the room as if reading a script only I could see. Every laugh, every toast, every "oh, you'll come next time," was a line in a play they thought I hadn't memorized. I smiled politely. My hands rested on the table. I spoke only when spoken to, my voice soft, measured. Inside, a coil of patience tightened, not in anger, not in fear, but in focus. I catalogued everything. Every slight became a stepping stone. Every dismissive glance was a mark in my ledger. They were setting the stage, unaware that the audience had been watching silently, calculating, and waiting for the perfect moment. It happened quietly, in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. I was alone in my apartment, sunlight streaming across the hardwood floor, when my sister's latest message arrived. "You should really consider missing this one too. It's better if you stay home." My thumb hovered over the reply button, and for the first time in years, I didn't automatically type "fine, understood." Something inside me shifted. All the years of being overlooked, of cleaning up after their mistakes, of letting their smirks and whispers define my worth, they culminated in that single quiet moment. I realized I had been invisible not because I lacked value, but because I allowed them to assume it. And I would no longer allow it. I sat back, letting my heart beat slow. I pictured the party, the perfectly arranged tables, the laughter that would echo without me. I imagined my stepsister's smirk when she realized I was not chasing approval. And then I made my decision. Not out of spite, not out of anger, but from clarity. I would act on my terms. I closed my eyes and traced the ledger in my mind, all the small betrayals, all the dismissals, every calculated slight. Each one became a note in a symphony I had been composing silently. I knew that my action would feel like a shock to them, and it would. But it would not be loud, it would not be chaotic, and it would not be cruel. It would be precise. Controlled. And in that quiet certainty I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel before: anticipation. Not fear. Not doubt. Anticipation. I was no longer the overlooked shadow in their story. I was the author of my own. I did not rush. Rushed decisions leave fingerprints. I waited until my emotions settled into something usable: clarity. Then I began where I always felt safest: facts, documents, numbers. 4 years I had managed family payments, subscriptions, and shared expenses because I was good with details. No one questioned it. They trusted my quiet efficiency without ever respecting it. I opened my laptop and reviewed everything carefully. Event deposits. Shared accounts. Monthly transfers labeled temporary but never returned. I had receipts, confirmations, polite messages where I had asked, "Let me know if you need help." They had mistaken that tone for weakness. In reality, it had been documentation. I checked contracts next. Cancellation clauses were clear. Deadlines were reasonable. No penalties if handled properly. I had learned long ago that calm preparation always beats confrontation. No arguments. No announcements. Just alignment with rules they had never bothered to read. I imagined their faces when the numbers stopped adding up, when services quietly disappeared, when the exclusive event began to unravel without explanation. Not ruined, just incomplete. I did not smile. Satisfaction would come later. This was not revenge driven by rage. It was balance. I was removing myself from roles I had been assigned without consent. I was reclaiming time, money, and dignity they had treated as communal property. When I finished, I closed the laptop and stood by the window, watching traffic move in steady lines below. Everything was in motion now, set by systems, not emotions. I would not need to defend myself. The silence would do that for me. The first sign came the morning of the party. My phone stayed silent, but I knew what was happening. Somewhere across town, plans were stalling. Payments that had always gone through without question had simply stopped. No warnings. No drama. Just absence. I imagined my sister refreshing her email, her smile tightening when she saw the notifications. I imagined my stepsister's confusion turning sharp as vendors asked polite questions she could not answer. I did not need to be there to feel it. The air around me was calm, almost weightless. I made coffee, listened to the soft clink of the mug against the counter, and let the moment pass through me without urgency. By afternoon, the messages arrived. Not apologies. Not yet. Just confusion disguised as politeness. Hey, did something change? Maybe there was a system error. I read them slowly, then placed the phone face down. Silence was my response. Silence had always been their weapon. Now it was mine. I took a walk as the sun lowered, the city glowing in muted gold. Somewhere, chairs were being rearranged, decorations removed, conversations growing tense. Not because I attacked, but because I stepped away. The difference mattered. That evening I received one final message: "We didn't realize you handled all of this." I did not reply. Understanding had arrived too late. The party would still happen, I was sure. Just smaller. Quieter. Less certain. And for the first time, so would their confidence. The next day, texts began trickling in. Confusion first, then guilt. My sister sent a carefully worded apology. "I didn't realize how much I relied on you." My stepsister followed with a string of emojis that felt like a silent surrender. I read them, then set the phone aside. Nothing needed a response. They had learned without me saying a word. Family gatherings became quieter. Conversations that used to revolve around their demands now hesitated when I entered the room. People noticed the shift, though no one mentioned it. Their respect had been earned not through confrontation or yelling, but by refusing to be taken for granted. I had shifted the balance without creating enemies. Even my own reflection changed. I saw someone who no longer carried invisible debts for others' mistakes. Someone whose time, energy, and choices were finally recognized as their own. That quiet recognition felt heavier than any applause. My self-worth, long assumed as collateral by their convenience, was mine again. And the subtle lessons traveled farther than I expected. Friends who had watched me bend in silence began to ask, "How do you finally say enough?" I could only smile. Because they weren't asking about money or parties, they were asking about boundaries, dignity, and knowing when to stop being everyone's default solution. For the audience watching or reading, this matters because everyone has been the reliable one, the fixer, the peacemaker, the invisible backbone. And everyone deserves to see that standing your ground doesn't have to be loud. It can be quiet, calculated, and ultimately it can be the kind of revenge that leaves you intact, respected, and free. Weeks passed, and the quiet finally settled. My sister and stepsister continued their lives, but I no longer moved around the shadows of their expectations. I realized the weight I had carried for years, the unpaid favors, the hidden tensions, the invisible labor, was never mine to bear. And releasing it did not feel like loss, it felt like claiming air I had long been denied. Emma noticed first. One evening we sat on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker against the dark. "You seem lighter," she said, half smiling. I laughed softly. Lighter, yes, because for the first time I was untethered. Boundaries were no longer suggestions I had to negotiate endlessly. Respect was no longer something I begged for silently. It was a quiet fact. I reflected on the future. Family events would come and go, and I would attend or not on my own terms. No one could dictate my joy, my celebrations, or my peace. My relationships, my energy, my time, they belonged to me. I understood now that revenge need not be loud or humiliating. True satisfaction comes when the imbalance is corrected silently, with dignity intact, and lessons absorbed without chaos. As I looked out over the balcony, I thought about the power of quiet decisiveness. Years of being underestimated had taught me patience. Years of being ignored had taught me strategy. And years of being relied upon had taught me that choosing yourself is not selfish, it is survival. I smiled at Emma, and she squeezed my hand. Somewhere, my sister might still scroll her phone, realizing the day they tried to control me had slipped through their fingers. And I felt a calm warmth that no apology, explanation, or dramatic gesture could match. Because sometimes the most unforgettable revenge is the one that leaves you whole.